10 sports superstars who ruined their careers. We as a whole have our legends in the brandishing scene, regardless of whether they're football players from our number one nearby group or Olympic heroes. We admire them, and our youngsters gain from them. We may even need to master all that we can about our number one game symbols, from their starting points to their preparation strategies to their number one note. Fruitful competitors are still just human, however, and can settle on similar horrible decisions as any of us. Various game stars throughout the years have destroyed their vocations through their horrendous choices. Here are 10 such fallen symbols. Number 10. Ryan Lochte. Ryan Lochte, from Daytona Beach, Florida, grew up cherishing the water and in the long run, got referred to for his title as a 12-time Olympic medalist. His rewards incorporate 6 gold decorations, 3 silver awards, and 3 bronze awards, absolutely qualifying him as an Olympic victor. On top of this, he holds the world record in the 200-meter singular variety, just as having been named both World and American Swimmer of the Year for the years 2010 and 2011. He holds an astounding complete of 70 worldwide rivalry awards, 45 of which are ahead of all comers, and he has a gigantic web-based media following. All in all, could it be that settle on the horrendous choice that nearly demolished his profession? In 2016, Lochte was planned for the Rio Olympics, in which he would keep up his honor winning the title and perhaps add a couple of more awards to the assortment. This, nonetheless, finished when he was accused of offering a bogus expression to police with respect to him and a mate being held at gunpoint and looted. Once caught out in his falsehood, he was brought to court, where he uncovered that he and his companions were not looted and created the story to cover the way that they had been gotten by security vandalizing a service station restroom. Lochte's story had left Brazil humiliated, and upon the disclosure of reality, well-known patrons Speedo and Ralph Lauren dropped him as a customer. Lochte wound up keeping away from all charges after his legal advisor contended that he didn't violate any laws by misrepresenting the subtleties of the occasions of that night. Number 9. Lance Armstrong. Lance Armstrong was one of the world's most preferred cyclists, having conquered cancer and made a full rebound to the game regardless of the uncertainty tossed at him from specialists and general society. He had his first triumph on the Tour de France in 1999 and prepared much harder to acquire and more titles over the Olympics and the Tour. He zeroed in the majority of his experience on the Tour de France up until he resigned for a very long time and returned for 2 additional races in 2009 and 2010. In 2009, he figured out how to put third, and in 2010, he fell once again into the pack prior to reporting a subsequent retirement. Notwithstanding battling with sickness all through his vocation, he was continually blamed for utilizing unlawful medications to upgrade his presentation. Were the bits of gossip valid? Regardless of failing to test positive, Lance Armstrong conceded on the Oprah Winfrey Show in 2012 to doping all through his cycling profession. The world was stunned as the subtleties of his embarrassment were at long last uncovered. Accordingly, he was deprived of each of the 7 of his Tour de France wins and prohibited from cycling to set a case of what will befall competitors utilizing restricted substances. While Armstrong accepts that he ought to be excused, he additionally guaranteed ABC in a 2015 meeting that in the event that he was returned to 1995, when doping was unavoidable, he would do it once more. He says that lying and deceptive nature is his greatest lament. Clearly, doping to drive his profession merited losing all his poise over. Number 8. Tanya Harding. Conceived in Portland, Oregon, in 1970, Tanya Harding started ice skating at 3 years old. During her sophomore year, she exited school to zero in the entirety of her experience on the game to attempt to make a vocation out of it. In 1991, in spite of the pundits en route, she won her first public title and furthermore turned into the main American lady to effectively land a triple axel in the rivalry. From that point, she kept winning awards, including silver at the World Championships, fourth in the French Winter Olympics in 1992, and ultimately won more gold at the 1994 U.S. Championships. Her fundamental adversary was Nancy Kerrigan. Exactly how far would Harding venture out in front of her opposition? During the development of the 1994 Winter Olympics, the opposition got furious among Harding and Kerrigan. It arrived at where the weight got so hefty for Harding that she depended on criminal acts to excel. Notwithstanding the opposition, Harding was continually confronting media assaults for being on from some unacceptable side of the arena. Articles expressed that she didn't have as much a possibility as Kerrigan in light of the fact that she wasn't as delightful or elegant, further frustrating her. At last, Harding's then-spouse and her guardian concocted an arrangement to break Kerrigan's leg just before the qualifiers to crush her Olympic possibilities. The assault was ill-conceived, and the recruited contract killer wound up missing Kerrigan's knee, giving her solitary a terrible wound prior to making an emotional exit. Kerrigan proceeded to make the Olympic choice, and both she and Harding were tossed into a media bazaar discussing connivances and contempt between the two. Harding's better half invested energy in the slammer for the assault while Harding at first strolled free yet later confessed to the frustrating indictment, handling her 3 years probation, 500 hours of network administration, and a $100,000 fine. She was additionally restricted from the game forever. Number 7. Lamar Odom. Lamar Odom was conceived in Queens in 1979 and lost his mom at 12 years old, leaving him in his grandma's consideration. To adapt to his despondency, he hurled himself entirely into a ball and was named Player of the Year in his secondary school for a very long time by Parade magazine. He figured out how to begin his expert profession with the Los Angeles Clippers, who was prestigious for their losing record, prior to being offered a superior agreement with the Miami Heat. Here, he prepared with any semblance of Dwayne Wade and colossally improved his game. After that season, he was welcomed to speak to the United States in the Olympics, where he worked with the group to win bronze, which he by and by expressed was the best honor of his whole profession. Following this, he wound up contracted to the LA Lakers, where he would play the following 7 NBA seasons. This would be the stature of his vocation. Despite the fact that his life was apparently awesome, Odom was battling with drug misuse, which in the end prompted the end of his vocation. In the 2000-2001 season, he was suspended for abusing the incredibly severe NBA drug strategy subsequent to accepting a charge for driving impaired. He was requested to go to a quarter of a year of recovery for liquor misuse. Notwithstanding, he started taking up drugs again in the wake of being compromised to a Dallas group in an arrangement he wasn't content with. In 2015, he was distinguished at a massage parlor subsequent to overdosing and passing out. The staff settled on a terrifying crisis decision, revealing that he had blood and a white substance coming from his mouth and nose in the wake of taking a lot of what they thought was natural Viagra. Following this close deadly occurrence, he was constrained once again into recovery and no longer plays for any groups in the NBA. Number 6. Ray Rice. Ray Rice is an NFL legend who played as running back for the Baltimore Ravens for 5 seasons and 1 Super Bowl win. In contrast to your normal backfield player, Rice has a lot more limited form, yet he prepared more earnestly than some other to in the end turn into the best. His preparation to arrive at the NFL started in his first year of college when he helped the Rutgers Scarlet Knights make their rebound after a 14-season losing streak. During his sophomore year, he broke a school record with 1,794 yards, which incorporated a 225-yard push against Pitt. From that point, he understood his fantasy by skirting his senior year and entering the NFL draft, where he was picked by the Ravens in the 2nd round. So what might have led to Ray Rice's downfall in the wake of ending up being quite a significant player for the Ravens? What changed the words plays for into when played for at quite a youthful age? Regardless of requiring his fantastic abilities as their running back, the Baltimore Ravens were left with no decision except to end Rice's agreement after the film was delivered indicating Rice punching his fiancée in a lift prior to hauling her body out into an in-lobby. He was additionally suspended by the NFL official for an uncertain time. While the film had recently been delivered indicating Rice hauling his fiancée out of the lift, no move had been made, as there was insufficient proof to show that he had done anything incorrectly. A half-year later, nonetheless, TMZ delivered the realistic video, which indicated Rice thumping the lady oblivious. He was accused of crime-disturbed attack yet had the option to stay away from prison time and has since expressed that the lift episode was the greatest misstep of his life. It's obscure in the event that he will actually have the option to revisitation the game he cherishes to such an extent. Number 5. Plaxico Burris. Plaxico Burris is another NFL legend who played as a wide receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers, the New York Giants, and the New York Jets. His profession started at Michigan State University, where he set a record for the most passes trapped in a solitary season with an astounding 65 gets. He additionally approached the records of most score gets, catches, and getting yards and was positioned as the MVP of his group. In 2000, he was drafted into the Pittsburgh Steelers, however, because of a physical issue, he just played 12 games in his first NFL season. Despite the fact that he was an incredible player on the field, he picked up a standing of being an issue off the field, which implied that when he turned into a free agent in 2004, his alternatives were restricted, and the Steelers would not sign him once more. He in the end wound up with an agreement with the New York Giants, where he battled to fix his standing by playing a stunning season. It was with the Giants that he made sure about success at the 2008 Super Bowl against the New England Patriots. So where did he turn out badly? His second season with the Giants got off to a repulsive beginning. He was suspended from a game for abusing group rules. It wasn't long after this that he committed the error that would prompt his end. Toward the finish of 2008, Burris was admitted to a clinic in the wake of shooting himself in the leg at a New York dance club. He asserted that he was being driven higher up with his companions by a safety officer to move away from the group when he lost his balance, bringing about his firearm being unfastened from his belt. While trying to get it before it hit the floor, he coincidentally pulled the trigger on his own leg. Shockingly, it wasn't the shot to the leg that demolished his vocation but instead the way that he didn't have a permit to convey the firearm. He wound up serving 20 months in prison for criminal ownership of a gun and paid a weighty fine. In the wake of being released in 2011, he endeavored to make a rebound by marking with the New York Jets and afterward again with the Steelers. However, it was past the point of no return. His profession was at that point over. Number 4. Michael Vick. NFL quarterback Michael Vick drew consideration from the NFL while he was playing for Virginia Tech in his sophomore year. He additionally drew the consideration of the MLB, who endeavored to draft him. Nonetheless, he chose rather skirt his last long stretches of school to play in the NFL. Upon this choice, he was immediately drafted as quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons. He marked onto a 6-year contract, during which he would star as the group's beginning quarterback and lead them to triumphs, ultimately landing him a 10-year contract expansion. All that appeared to be falling set up for Vick, as he was fundamentally set for existence with a vocation on an unfathomable group. So for what reason did he discard it? Not long into his agreement, it appeared to be that fame had gotten to Vick's head, and the authorities started to address whether he had the development levels to deal with the measure of weight that had been put on him at quite a youthful age. The Falcons started to perform less fortunate and more unfortunate, and despite the fact that Vick was all the while setting up great numbers, he wasn't supporting the group in the manner in which he had when he was first marked. He purchased a house in Georgia, which, over the long haul, ended up being, even more, a jungle gym for him and his companions than a position of living for a genuine competitor. In 2004, a truck possessed by Vick was seized, and the two drivers were captured after they were found to ship a lot of Mary Jane. Vick, be that as it may, was rarely charged. After a year, he was sued for supposedly giving a lady a sexually transmitted disease, and afterward 2 years from that point forward, things spiraled significantly wilder. Specialists examining a medication-related hit assaulted Vick's property, which prompts the revelation of a dogfighting scene run by him and his companions. After specialists revealed dooming proof connecting Vick to the ring, he confessed and served 21 months in jail. He in the long run got back to the NFL, however is presently resigned. Number 3. Tiger Woods. Proficient golf player Tiger Woods formally turned expert in 1996 and demonstrated himself to be serious and persistent while building his profession. His accomplishments incorporate 105 overall successes and 14 majors, just as countless fruitful tasks of the course. He is the originator and CEO of TGR, an undertaking made of his organizations and charitable tasks. These incorporate TGR Design, the TGR Foundation, TGR Live, and the Woods Jupiter. Among every one of his victories, he holds 79 PGA Tour wins, which is the second most noteworthy for any one part of the planet. In 2001, he turned into the principal golf player actually to hold all significant expert titles in a single year, including the Masters Tournament, PGA Championship, US Open Championship, and the British Open Championship. By and large, he is positioned as one of the most extraordinary parts in his field ever. So what was the deal? Scandal, they called it. Everything began in 2010 with Tiger's better half driving him out of the house, employing a golf club at him in the wake of discovering that he had been faithless. She knew there was, at any rate, one other lady, maybe perhaps two. However, this night would come to disclose the genuine revolting behind Tiger Woods. His then-spouse, Aileen Nordegren, experienced his telephone while it was unattended and called the young lady he was engaging in extramarital relations with, leaving a phone message. After acknowledging what had occurred, Woods endeavored to cover his tracks. However, he was at that point past the point of no return. Nordegren proceeded to spy and found one more issue her better half was having through his telephone. She trapped him while he was half snoozing with the golf club, bringing about him endeavoring an escape in his Escalade, just to crash. After this episode made the news, there was an overflowing of truth from pornography stars, strippers, escorts, and gathering young ladies, who all ventured forward to admit their undertakings with Tiger Woods. After the admissions, there were 15 known escorts, one of whom was underage. This was sufficient to demolish the standing Woods had endeavored to develop and incidentally drove him into stowing away. While it didn't destroy his game, it defaced his sponsorship arrangements and his picture in the public eye. Never again would his profession be at a similar level. Number 2. O.J. Simpson. O.J. Simpson, born into the world in 1947, turned into a football genius during his college a very long time at the University of Southern California. In spite of the fact that he at first experienced difficulty getting onto the group because of his horrible scores, he at last picked up his acclaim playing for the USC Trojans, where he set NCAA precedents and won the Heisman Trophy in 1968. From here, he joined the Buffalo Bills, where he had a rough beginning prior to dominating and turning into the main NFL player to effectively surge in excess of 2,000 yards in a solitary season. In 1979, he resigned from Proficient Football to seek after a vocation as a sportscaster and entertainer. Unexpectedly, in 1974, He played a man outlined for homicide by police in The Klansman. He additionally had a featuring part in the Naked Gun series. During his vocation, Simpson battled with a helpless marriage and separation in the wake of losing his little girl when she suffocated in the family pool just before her subsequent birthday. His second spouse Nicole Brown, with whom he had 2 children, additionally grumbled to companions about how he genuinely manhandled her. In 1989, the couple went to a New Year's Eve party where Simpson was seen taking steps to execute Brown. He, in any case, figured out how to get over the episode in a TV interview, expressing that it was only a battle and that the 2 players were off base, and discussed how they had since proceeded onward with their coexistence. In 1994, notwithstanding the assortments of Brown and Ron Goldman, a dear companion of hers, were found cut to death outside their Los Angeles home. It wasn't long until police were on the chase for Simpson as a significant suspect in the wrongdoing and requested him to give up himself. Despite the fact that he argued not blameworthy and was vindicated of all charges, he was later discovered at risk for the improper passings of Brown and Goldman. Shockingly, the signs were there since the beginning for Simpson, as he was once essential for a group called the Persian Warriors, which landed him in the San Francisco Youth Guidance Center in 1962. Following the episode, Simpson was to distribute a secretly composed book called If I Did It. However, the book's privileges wound up in the possession of the Goldman family, who altered the book to add critique and distributed it under the altered title of If I Did It, Confessions of the Killer. At last, in 2008, Simpson and a companion were sentenced on 12 checks of equipped theft and abducting, which landed them with as long as 33 years in prison. Simpson was allowed parole and delivered in 2017, however, he'd since a long time ago demolished any great standing he'd worked for himself during his NFL years. Number 1. Oscar Pistorius. Born in South Africa in 1986, Oscar Pistorius, otherwise known as the Blade Runner, defeated all chances when he turned out to be tremendously dynamic in the worldwide Dawning network in spite of having had 2 of his legs cut off when he was a baby. He started running at 16 years old, and a simple few months after the fact, he remained on the platform and got a gold decoration at the Athens Paralympics. After this, Pistorius had the option to contend in opposition with physically fit competitors, as his degree of accomplishment among the Paralympians turned out to be excessively high. In 2012, he was the primary amputee to actually contend in track occasions at the Olympics. After this achievement, nonetheless, everything transformed south for Pistorius as he was tossed into trails over the homicide of his sweetheart, Reva Steenkamp. In 2013, Pistorius was captured in the wake of the shooting and slaughtering his sweetheart through the washroom entryway, purportedly accepting she was an interloper. He was at last seen as blameworthy of chargeable crime and crazy danger and condemned to 5 years in jail. In the wake of being liberated only 1 year into his sentence, a request court toppled the first adjudicator's choice and updated his conviction to kill. He was condemned to serve 6 years in jail. His sentence was later expanded to 13 years, and he will be qualified for parole in 2023. There is still right up till today a great deal of discussion via online media regarding if Pistorius' story is acceptable. In the event that he thought the individual in the washroom was a gatecrasher, where did he think his sweetheart was?